Welcome to this new section about mainly interpolation. We are going to talk about the motion path and be very precise. You're also going to learn about spatial and temporal interpolation, where you will learn how to upgrade your animation to create Bezier keyframes in time and space. Also, you will learn essential techniques to change the motion path of a position animation, how to change the speed to ease in and out of a keyframe. Also, you will go through the graph editor using the speed graph and the value graph. And as usual, I will give you lots of tips and tricks how to create some awesome animations. Let's dive into space and time interpolation. In this lecture, you are going to understand at 100% the concept of motion path. Let's start. I'll create a new composition and I will take 1280 by 720, and please work with me. Make sure that the frame rate is 30. Okay, this is important because I'm gonna talk about the frame rate. And then of course make it 10 seconds, it will do. Cool. So now that you have your composition, I want to remind you about a couple of settings. First, if you go to edit, if you are on the Mac, you are I think under AfterEffects CC, you go to preferences and here you go to general. Remember, there is a setting that you put here, default spatial interpolation to linear. Well, what does it mean? There are 3 keywords here, out of 5 actually. Spatial, it means it is in space, not in time. It's in space, not in time. It is spatial, not temporal. Interpolation, it means the interpretation of the motion path or how it's going to occur. And linear, it means straight lines and not curved lines or circular lines. So spatial, space, interpretation, and linear. Make sure this default is checked. Click OK. Within your composition preview, it's important that you put toggle mask and shape path visibility on. Okay, so make sure it's on. If you can't see the motion path later on, try to put it on and off. And in the preview, please make sure that the last icon is checked. This will allow us to see the motion path when we have a preview. Let's create a motion through space and time. That is spatial and temporal. Nice terms, but they're gonna appear in AfterEffects and you're gonna use them. Let's take, for example, a circle. Okay, I'll click on the ellipse tool, click and drag and create a circle. Okay, so the anchor point jumped in the middle of the circle. If you don't have it, use the anchor point tool to bring it in the middle here. If you want to animate through time and space, you will need the position. Let's keyframe the position just over here. And then let's move down the time. I will move now in time. Notice I moved in time for 1 second. Then let's move in space. Here you are. So when you moved in time and you moved in space, a motion path has been created. As simple as this. Let's do it again. Let's move to 2 seconds. Here you are. So we moved in time and then we move in space and another leg of the motion path has been created. Let's move again in time and let's move again in space. So this is spatial, this is temporal, and a new motion path has been created or a new leg. Let's go to the final one at 4 and move again. Here you are. I stopped the animation at 4 seconds. If you scrub through now, your element or your shape is moving through time and through space. That's pretty cool. So this is how a motion path is created. Let's look at the spatial aspect of the motion path. First of all, you have these big squares here. 1 and 2 and 3. Okay, these are the keyframes. Notice if I click on this one, it will highlight in the timeline. These are the keyframes. You can click in space and change the position, the spatial position of this keyframe. So you are changing how you are looking at the path or what will be the path itself. Nothing to do with time, just moving it around. Now, these small dots here are the frames. Remember, our composition was 30 frames per second. So here you have 30 dots. Why? Because we have 1 second between this keyframe and this keyframe. There must be 30 frames per second. Now, if you zoom in, I will use this bar here to zoom in and to show you frames per second. Here you are. So notice you can jump 1 frame at a time. Here you are. This is in time, temporal. I'm going one frame at a time. And you notice that also spatially, it's going one frame at a time. As simple as this. Okay, you can use page down to move down in the timeline and in the space, one frame at a time, or page up. So this is the representation of the motion path, frames and keyframes. Let's do something else here. Let's zoom out, go back to normal, and let's take this keyframe, click on it and move it. But I'm going to move it very near to the second keyframe. Notice nothing has happened in time. So I still have 1 second in between the first, second keyframe, and 1 second between the second keyframe and the third keyframe. But if you notice, the space in between the keyframes here is at least visible. And the space here is totally not visible. Which means, since it has to traverse all these frames in 1 second, is going to go speedy. And all these frames in 1 second or so is going to be slow. Let's try it. If you don't believe me, here you are. This is the spatial visualization of the motion path, and you can come and draw it the way you would like. That will be very interesting to draw motion path very easily. You really don't have to harass to go to the keyframe. Let's look at the temporal aspect here. If I take this keyframe and drag it towards the next keyframe, okay, that's what's going to happen in the motion path here. So obviously in the timeline here, I know that I have more time in between the first and the second than in between the second and the third one. And visually, I can see that, or spatially if you like. There are more frames here and they are near to each other, meaning this animation is going to be somehow slow. Be careful, I could have 10 seconds, okay? But this one is surely very fast. Let's play. Okay, so actually this is all about the motion path. You create it through movement in space and movement in time using, for example, the position. If you want to follow along, please open the project file motionpath-start.aep. In this project, please double click on Spatial Interpolation composition to open it so we can start working. In this lecture, I want to explore with you the spatial interpolation, and it's very interesting. It will allow you to create, very interesting motion path. Cool. Let's take this one down to make it bigger. And let's select a keyframe, all the keyframes. To select all the keyframes, you can just click on the position, it will select them all. Now, let's go back to the beginning and right-click on one of the keyframes that is selected. Okay, you have here keyframe interpolation. It means this is how you are going to interpret the keyframes. Now notice we are in linear now, and you have really straight corners or sharp corners here. But when you go to keyframe interpolation, you have the option in spatial interpolation to change from linear to Bezier to continuous Bezier and auto Bezier. For example, let's choose Bezier here. So we are changing the spatial interpolation to Bezier. We have selected all our keyframes, so we expect a change in all the keyframes. Here you are. Notice what happened. First of all, the graph has been smoothed, quite smooth, in fact, very nice. So you don't have these sharp corners here. And the motion is quite nice. Now notice nothing has changed in the timeline. Temporally speaking, in the time, nothing changed. So what are these handles here? In the Bezier, these handles are broken. They are independent. They will allow you to create a motion path or change the motion path the way you would like. Here you are. So pretty interesting, right? So you have a ball or a character or whatever you want. You can design how the motion path is going to go. I will click out and play. Notice what's happening. Cool. Let's see it with the motion path now. Notice how the circle is moving according to the Bezier path. Let's stop the animation. Right click on the keyframe, any of them that's selected, go to keyframe interpolation, and from Bezier, let's take continuous Bezier, and I click OK. Now notice the whole graph has changed, is back to being very smooth, okay? You practically changed the interpretation of the keyframe. The handles here are connected, mean they will always stay in one single line, and they are always parallel or tangent, if you like, on the motion path. Now notice here it's a bit harder maybe to work, but you also avoid sharp angles, and you can make, for example, things like this. You notice, so if I go very far, the influence on the other bar will be less. If I go very near, the influence will be very strong. You notice when the bar is small, the influence on the other side of the keyframe is very hard, and when it is very long, the influence on the other keyframe is less. Here you are. Pretty nice, by the way. Okay, so now let's design a motion path that is interesting. Okay, you know what's happening. It's not going to be easy the first time, but I'm sure you are going to get used to it. Okay, here you are. And let's play. Pretty cool. Let's deselect. And you notice your ball. I mean, it's amazing to put now some blur and notice what's happening. Cool. Let's remove the blur. And now let's select again all the keyframes and try the next one in keyframe interpolation, spatial. You can go now to auto Bezier. Well, auto Bezier actually is the default. When you do easy ease, we'll see that later, it starts with auto Bezier. Well, you see, you cannot see the handles here. The truth is, it has smoothened the path, but as soon as you change the handles here, you play with them, they go back to continuous Bezier. Okay, guys, here you are. As simple as this. But if you leave it the way it is, it's very nice. It's auto Bezier. Now, this is the default mode when you easy ease. Let's play this animation, and you notice that you have a nice path. Just to draw to your attention, you have changed nothing in the timeline in terms of time. It's only in space, and this is spatial interpolation. Pretty cool. Go to After Effects, guys. Get a board somewhere. Try to play with the path. Try to do something amusing. I reduced the number of keyframes here to make it simple for temporal interpolation. I also, if you right click, you go to keyframe interpolation, I changed everything to linear. So now we want to focus on temporal interpolation. You have the same options: linear, Bezier, continuous Bezier, and auto Bezier. And you have hold keyframes. We'll see that later. Let's start with the continuous Bezier because it's the easiest here. And I'll click OK. Now notice nothing has happened in the timeline or in spatial here for the motion path. That is because you cannot see how in time the speed is behaving or the values are behaving. You need to go to the graph editor. It's just over here. If you click, now you're looking at the graph of the speed. How do you know that? There is the second icon here that's important. If you click on it, you notice you can use edit value graph or speed graph. So now we want to work with the speed graph. Okay, let's choose this one. The eye here, you have two options. You can put them, leave the magnet on and leave the auto zoom graph height on. Now we have here the three keyframes. If you select them, you notice that they have also some kind of bars here. I will not work with all keyframes. I'm going to take the middle one over here. And you notice if you point, it says shape layer 1 position and the speed, pixels per second, 282. If you click on it, you can drag it down. Notice I'm reducing the speed. Now I would like you to notice on the graph here what's happening. When I change the speed, the frames are somehow moving in a certain direction. So now I have very high speed on this keyframe. So what are we looking at? Notice here in the spatial, the frames here are very much next to each other. It means it's slow. And here they start separating. It means the speed is fast and it comes to the keyframe. And from here they start very fast and then slow. Look at the graph. It's exactly the same. You start at a certain speed. In fact, you decrease the speed. You can read it. You start at 287. You decrease to 75. It goes up and then it goes down. That's the speed. Let's play your animation from here. Press spacebar, notice. Up. Okay, that's pretty cool. Now you are altering the speed of the motion graph. The motion graph will stay intact in the spatial. Now you have the two handles here. This is the influence. The right handle will influence the right side of the keyframe. If you click and drag it out, notice what's happening here. The frames are getting to be adjusted. I'll take it to almost nothing, zero influence here. You notice I'm trying not to change the speed. So that's what's happening here. Now the influence is so little on this graph that the graph has changed. It's going to jump to a certain speed and slow down and come to almost a nil speed. Let's play. Notice what's happening. Cool, and okay. So let's make it, change it while it's playing. Notice what's happening. We have got it back, and let's change this side, and let's change the left side. Okay, here you are. Now you can play with the speed the way you would like. You can move the keyframes. Actually, here I'm moving the keyframes in time according to the timeline. Notice where the keyframe now, I changed its place. So here you are really playing how the speed is going to be within your motion graphs or your motion path. Okay, now let's take this one down and notice what's going to happen. Okay, the influence is very big. So it's going to start speedy, or start at certain speed, go very speedy, slow down, and come down. Okay, guys, so it's pretty cool. You can come and play with it and try all what you want to try. It's as easy as this. Okay, it's just about adjusting it the way you would like. Now, if you want to return the keyframes to linear, so we can choose something else, I'll click on position, selected all the keyframes, and to return them to linear, just over here. Convert selected keyframes to linear. We click on it, now they are linear. Let's right click on a keyframe and go to keyframe interpolation, and here from temporal interpolation, let's change it to Bezier, and we click OK. Now Bezier, remember the handles were not parallel in the spatial. Also, it's over here, they are broken. So if you click on a keyframe, you notice it has two handles now, one for the incoming and one for the outgoing. If you play with the handle, look what's happening here. Of course, I've selected all the keyframes. Click out, select a single keyframe. So notice how we are playing with the speed. So this Bezier will allow you to have an incoming speed, you know, to this keyframe, and an outgoing speed to this keyframe. Actually, they don't even have correlation, but they have influence. This is the influence. Here you are. Now notice how it's changing. Well, is this complicated? Yes, it is. But actually, you don't need to master it like, I know what's going to happen. Just look at the graph here. That's what we explained in the previous lectures, and decide, okay, this is what I would like to do. Now, let's return them to linear, just for the sake. I'll select all of them and click them back to linear, and go back to one of them in keyframe interpolation, and let's change from linear to continuous Bezier, and we click OK. Now continuous Bezier will smooth it out, and if you touch it or you change, it's gonna become continuous Bezier. Very cool. Okay, guys, so we're gonna come over here and play with the graph during the course a lot, and it's up to you how you want your animation to work and how you want to do the motion graphics, lower thirds, whatever. Cool, guys, this is all about this graph. It seems complicated, but actually it's a matter of using it, and it's gonna become pretty easy, you will see. To the easy is, easy in, and easy out, and how to use them in practical, in motion graphics in AfterEffects. Let me give you an example how we are going to work. Here we have a simple animation where the circle goes up and down, if you like. It's on the path, and this path is totally linear, spatial and temporal. Let's go to the graph here. You notice how it is. You start at a certain speed and is constant until the next keyframe. Here it is. Okay, this is the keyframe. Then the speeds drops, and then constant speed, then it drops. Cool. But you know, when you start a motion, you don't start a motion at a constant speed. First, you start at a slow speed, then pick up speed, right? Fine. So let's select this keyframe, and let's apply this concept, starting at a slow speed, then picking up. What you use here is what we call the easy ease out, meaning you are easing out of a keyframe. So you're moving slowly from a keyframe, then you pick up speed. If I click on it, notice what happened to the graph. It starts at speed 0, the speed picks up, and then slows down to come to a certain speed where it starts from the second keyframe. You can see this through the frames here. Okay, you have very many frames, slow speed, this is the one. Okay, then it comes over here. Cool. Now also, when it gets to the last frame, it just makes sense that the speed slows down before it stops. For this, you are easing into this keyframe, or you are applying an easy ease in, just over here. Okay, this is easy ease in. If you click, notice what happened now. From the previous keyframe, just above here, it picks up some speed. then the speed starts going down and slowly goes to a halt. This motion is much nicer than, the regular linear motion. But still we have a problem here. If you look at this keyframe, it comes at a certain speed. That's the incoming speed on the left, and that's the outgoing speed. So really, that's not what you want. You really want it to come to a stop. For this, you select the keyframe and you apply an easy in, that's one, then an easy ease. Cool. So now you have a very nice graph where the speed is very much, normal. You have an easy ease here and an ease in here. So ease out, easy ease, and ease in. Cool. Now let's take them all and return them to linear, like nothing happened, like before. Now I will select all the keyframes here, and instead of going easy in, easy out, and so on, by selecting all the keyframes, I'll just press on the easy ease. Here you are, and the graph is done. Cool. Right? So now this is practical use. But you can come over and start playing with the graph the way you want. Let's select the first keyframe and let's take the handle here and move it to the right. Here you are. So notice what's happening. It's going to come at a slow speed, pick up a lot of speed, then die out slowly. Nice, not bad. You can also do it from this side, just like this. So this is nice. It goes up, down. So it starts with a slow speed, nil almost, and picks up and goes down. You can do it that way, for example. I will select the left one and I push it here. Notice now it starts at a high speed and slows down. This is a very nice animation, mainly for text. You can do the same from this side and just go like this. Here you are. Notice the speeds are not equal. So let's adjust this guy over here. Here you are. And it goes down. If you want to reset them very well, let's go back to easy ease. So this is the concept and this is how we work. Now let's put them back to linear, just linear, and go back normally. How do you work from here? Let's select the first keyframe, right click, go to keyframe assistant this time, not keyframe interpolation, and from keyframe assistant go easy ease out. Okay, you're going out of a keyframe. Here you are. Look at the graph. Okay. Now, if you go to the last keyframe, you right click and you say keyframe assistant, easy ease in. It's shift and 9 and then control shift and 9. Okay, here you are, you applied it. In the middle one, you can now right click and of course, instead of going easy in, easy out, you go easy ease. Look at the graph now. It's very nice. It has become a very nice animation and the speed is pretty cool. Now, if you notice in the graph, the keyframes are Bezier and not continuous Bezier. If I move it up, you have two speeds, the incoming speed and the outgoing speed. So really, you can make your animation to look the way you would like. For example, here you are, stops fast and comes out. Cool, guys. So normally, what we are going to use is very easy. Let's select all of them, make them linear, come over here, and we select all our keyframes and simply we press F9 to apply easy ease. We come to the graph over here and we start playing with the speed and decide, okay, this one I want it over here. Okay, that's pretty cool. Fine. Now we have done this for a ball. Let's be practical and do it for some text. Let's do it for a title. Let's take the text tool and type here title here. Okay, now we want the title to come from the outside. Okay, so we open the position P, we keyframe it, for example, at 1 second if you like. I'll keyframe it, and let's say after just 2 seconds or less even, you move it to the other side. Okay, let's move it to the middle. Right, now if you notice the animation is linear, right? Same speed. Cool. You select both keyframes, here you are, and then press F9. Now they are easy eased. You notice the animation is nicer. Come to the graph here. Okay, I don't like it like this. Let's do it like this. And you see the title is settling very nicely. You can also click and drag the keyframe to give it more time. And the title is really getting quite cool here. Now, after some seconds here, you want to remove the title. So let's put a keyframe over here and then move a bit and then take the title out the other direction. Okay, it just makes sense that you take both of them, We press F9, here you are, and we take the outspeed and just make it over here like this. Something like this will work. Okay, and then let's play our animation. Look what's happening. It settles and it comes out and speeds out. This is very nice. Now usually you will select all of them just like this and press F9, go to the graph. Look, you have it done for you. You come over here, you stretch this one, for example, this way, and this one you stretch it this way, so you have these kind of speeds. Cool, guys. This is pretty nice. We are still in the theory. Later on we are going to take our previous animations and apply easy ease and easy in and easy out. Until now, guys, we have been using the speed graph, but there is another graph called the value graph that is very interesting. I would really ask you to go ahead and explore it. I will show you here a few tricks. It's very easy to use, very simple, but really you need to be a bit more creative and it will give you some interesting results. Okay, so we have here a circle. Let's open the scale, that is S, and keyframe at 100%. Then go back, let's say 15 frames before, and put it at 0. Okay, I will put the chain link back and I put it to 0. Now, if you play the animation, it's very simple. It's just the circle growing. Cool. Let's select all the keyframes. I'm pressing on the scale and then press F9 to apply an easy ease. And let's go to the graph. Now, here I am in the value graph. If you come to the second icon here, you notice you have speed graph and value graph. For the scale, you usually use the value graph. Let's select it. Now, notice the scale has 2 values, but you have 1 bar. Actually, you don't have 1 bar. If you remove the chain link and click on the keyframe and take it down, now you have 2 of them. The red one is for the X scale and the green one is for the Y scale. If you put the chain link back, then they will work now, but they will go together. Okay, so it is really not 1 value, it is 2 values with 2 graphs if you remove the chain link. I'll put it back so we have only 1 graph. Now let's notice exactly how we can work with this one. Let's zoom in a bit, just a bit. Here you are. Now you have the handles here. Look what you can do. If you click on the handle and take it down, now the animation has completely changed. I press spacebar to play it. Here you are. You notice the speed here of the scale is totally different. Cool. That's one. Let's stop the animation and come just over here. Okay. This is the 100%, right? Notice the size. But if I use the handle, I can go above 100%. Watch this. Okay? Up. Now, here it is bigger than it's supposed to be. So, actually, it's going to start growing the scale, then coming to 100%. Here it's 100%, and then it goes bigger and comes down. So if you play the animation now, notice the pop. Pretty cool, right, guys? Okay. Now, how many tricks you can do here? An infinity. Let's do something, for example, just like this. Okay, and if you start the animation, here you are. It goes very fast and comes down. You can also play more tricks. Okay, just play with the handles here and take it down like this. It's gonna reach 100% here. I play. So notice how it's gonna go. It's gonna grow in size, scale up to a certain value here, then goes down, you notice, and then goes up. Here, you can play with this one the way you would like. Now here, though, I clicked somewhere wrong, it is going negative. Negative in scale is just take it in, okay? So we start from a certain value, goes in and out. Not bad. So depending on what you want to do, you can really play with the value graph and get some very nice pops. Good. Let's explore something else now. Let's put the circle out. Let's also lock it and take the title. This is the title over here. Of course, I need to animate it. I will animate it again with the scale. Come at 10 frames over here. I will keyframe the scale. The chain link is on. I put it at 0. And then I will come after 10 frames and put it back at 100%. Okay, let's test our animation. It's very easy, just grows. I will select both keyframes. I will click on the scale. Here you are. And then press F9. I will make them easy ease. Now I can play with the graph exactly like I have done with the circle. But maybe you can be more creative. Take it up over here. Right? Something like this. This will be a very nice title animation, for example, in the beginning. If you like it, I don't. Now, this is better. Yes. So really you're popping out in the face of the viewer. Sorry for that. But here you are. So the value graph is very nice to work with the scale, and it gives you these kind of pops. Of course, I leave it to your creativity to create even more and more. So we use the scale here. Let's go and use something else. Let's go use the rotation. I'm going to use the star to do the rotation. Press R. I'll start keyframing the rotation here at 10 frames. Okay, for 0, and then after some time, let's say, now let's add a second, something like this. Okay, and give it, for example, 180. So we have a half rotation. So I play, that's it, it's rotating. Now, select the rotation keyframes and press F9. They are easy eased. Let's come over here and use this bar. So if you take it up, it's going to increase the number of rotation. Notice how it's increasing over here. And let's make it just like this. Okay, now, if you play, here you are, it rotates and goes back. Pretty speedy, it goes back. Okay, you can just make it smoother. Here you are. So it rotates and goes back to itself. So it's pretty interesting when you're working with the value graph, depending on what you want to do. This is to do it with keyframes. You need like, I don't know, 2-3 keyframes to do it. Now let's stop this animation. Let's use the Y tool and move the anchor point somewhere just over here. Okay, and now let's play our animation. Let's select the rotation. So notice what's happening now. It goes up and down. Okay, it's rotating the other way, but it still works with us. Let's go to this keyframe. Okay, instead of 180, we put -80. And notice what's happening here. We play. Okay, like it takes, you know, like starting, it's taking momentum, then it goes back. Of course, using motion blur here, let's put it on the star itself, is going to give you a nice effect. You notice? So this is actually how you use the value graph, and it's pretty interesting. But you know, guys, it's not gonna come just like this. You are going to tweak the animation, you're gonna play with the graph, you're gonna find your own style, you're gonna find your own pops. I just show you, it's just the tip of the iceberg. It's up to you now and up to the animation that we are going to do within this course to really refine your skills in using the graph. One thing you should do is to shy off from the graph. Don't. It might seem very complicated now, but give it like 5 trials and you will feel so comfortable using the value and the speed graphs. Let's go back and revisit the preference. Okay, I'm nagging it about you, but it's very important. Actually, it depends on how you want to work. And I want to give you the ability to work the way you want. Not only what I'm saying, but also expand beyond what I have explained. And ask me all the questions you want. I really, from all my heart, I want you to become a top motion graphics and visual effects artist. Now, we have here the default spatial interpolation to linear. Remember what used to happen. If we take, for example, a square or a rectangle, whatever, and then we use the position, we keyframe over here, and then we go down in the timeline, and then we do it just like this. So we have a motion path. Now you know all about it. But then it is linear, meaning the spatial interpolation is linear. Now let's go back and remove the preference. I will come to Edit, Preference, General, and I will just check it off. Okay. Now let's draw another rectangle. Okay, just over here. Now we take the position, keyframe the position here, go a few seconds or whatever you like, and just move it this side. Now notice what happened. This is the previous one with spatial interpolation set to linear. And this one, the spatial interpolation, has been checked off and it's not linear. The previous one is linear and you don't have the Bezier path. So now you can immediately start working in Bezier and designing your path if you want to do so. I will undo that. Why was I telling you always, check it? Because if you try to create now a new movement, look what's going to happen. Okay? The motion here is linear and you don't have a Bezier. Here it has created this curve, which most of the time you don't want, and sometimes it might create a worse curve. Here you are. You notice? So I didn't want this curve to appear because as a beginner or as soon as you start the course, it's a bit confusing. Now you have the Bezier over here and the handle, you can just play with it. So now guys, it's your choice. if you check the preference, you will always have linear. And of course, you know very well, you can come back over here, select all the keyframes and right click and go keyframe interpolation and set them the way you would like. For example, continuous Bezier. Okay, and click OK. So now they are both continuous Bezier, if you notice. Or you can start working with continuous Bezier by unchecking the option, and you are always in a continuous Bezier, and you always have the handles. And when you get these curves, you will have to fix them. If you want this to be straight, then you select the keyframe, right click, keyframe interpolation, and for the spatial here, you can put it to linear and click OK. Here you are. I do work on After Effects every day. I prefer it set to linear, and then I manipulate the keyframe the way I like. But you can do differently and explore your own skills. Welcome to Interpolation Challenge. It's very important that you challenge yourself and you practice a lot about interpolation. It's actually what makes and breaks an animation. It's extremely important. Actually, all the sections that you went through until now are extremely important. So you can build a strong base for motion graphics and you know all the ins and outs. And later on, you will carry this knowledge towards visual effects. You will become really a master, believe me guys. So to achieve your challenge and practice, you need to open the project file Interpolation Challenge Start.aep. Here I have combined the biggest animations that we have done until now. There is my company, I still call it sequence, but you can see it's the first one. And there is the flood animation, I call it flood, this is the news one. And there is the global warming, this is a very nice, full of motion graphics. And of course, there is the old time and it's reversed. This is the YouTube animation. So what I would like you to do here is to start, for example, with my company sequence. And here you want to open all the keyframes and start doing the easy ease and working with the value graph for scale and the speed graph for the position. And you move on after you have trained here. It really doesn't matter if it's looking fantastic, but try your best. Then you move on to the flood animation and you work all the keyframes to make them easy ease, you know, reduce the time, work on them, make them very smooth. Then there is the global warming. You remember this was quite some task to achieve with all these motion graphics. Easy is all the keyframes, create some is out, is in, play in the graph editor, make them come smoothly, slow down, all what you can imagine. Please make it fun, be happy doing it. Don't make it as you have to learn it. What you have to do is to have fun. How can you make it the best? And finally, go to the old times and create Bezier keyframes all over and let it animate very smoothly. I hope guys you went through the 4 animations and you eased all the keyframes, used the speed graph and the value graph, and you made this animation really quite eased and smooth all the way. If you open the project file Interpolation Challenge Final.aap, you'll find out that all the projects here I tried to easy ease them. I mean, the best way I know, right guys? And some of them are pretty cool, like this one I did very nicely, I tried. Okay, not bad. And the old times also, I was very simple here, I just easy eased everything. So together, let's do the flood animation. Now let's start with the top news and its background. I will select all the keyframes and press F9 to easy ease them. Come to the graph over here. Now I cannot work possibly with the scale and rotation in the same graph. The scale has to be in the value graph. So I will press Ctrl or Command on the Mac and deselect the rotation. Here you are. Then of course I will go to the value graph for the scale. I will zoom in a bit more. Now, what you can do is to take these 2 keyframes, position the timeline indicator where you want to create this bump. So I'm going to create a bump. So it's going to go bigger, then smaller. Notice how it's going to do. Okay, it goes bigger, and then comes back smaller. Here you are. Okay, it's cool. I like this animation. I like this bump. And it's very much used also on TVs. You can see it. Here you are. Not bad. It's cool. Now, for the rotation, if I select only the rotation, I'll have to go to the speed graph. Don't play with the rotation from the value graph. You will end up having the square, you know, on a certain position. That's not really cool. Go to the speed graph And here you are, you can play with the rotation just like this. Okay, maybe give it some more time. Okay, something like this. Let's see how it looks. Press spacebar to play. Not bad. I will deselect to see how it's happening. Go back to the beginning. Play. Not bad. It's cool. Okay, let's go back to our keyframes, and now let's start working with the other layers. We have here the August and its background. Tanzania, that's the place, and its background. Fine. Let's set the time indicator. I'll press B for beginning and N for end. So I'm working only in this space over here. Let's select all the keyframes now together. Okay. For the 4 layers, press F9 to easy ease them. I will stop the animation just over here and go to the graph. Now for the opacity, I will deselect and select the opacity. Here, the opacity, you can play with it, but really it needs some time to show. Otherwise, the viewer will not see it. You notice what's happening, and it settles. Okay, it's cool, but it's not that, visible. But the scale here, you can play with it again. You can go to the value graph for the scale. For the scale here, you have 2 charts. You have the green one, which is for the y-axis, and you have the red one for the x-axis. The graph is split here, and you can see 2 of them because there is no change on the y-axis. Only the values on the x-axis are changing. That's why you have 2 graphs. Now you can select over here and try to play with the handles. From time to time, you might select the green one instead of the red one, or the one that is not changing in values. Now this is a cool animation just like this. You notice what's happening. It's just coming up smoothly. That's one way to do it. You can also select them back and create the bump if you like to, but I'm gonna create one that is very smooth, something just like this. Okay, notice how it's gonna go. It's gonna come in, grow a bit, and go back, but it's very smooth. Let's play it. Yeah, you see it is so nice. Okay, I like that. Let's go back to our keyframes, and now we have the other part here. I will click on the work area and just drag it over here and then make it bigger so we can work with all these keyframes just over here. Here you are, notice? Okay, so I'll select these keyframes, all of them, press F9 to easy ease them. Cool. Let's go to the graph, and we're working with position here. Of course, you want to switch to the speed graph. So usually this is the method of working. It's practically very easy. Now here we have the 2 text layers and the background. From here, you can decide, okay, you want to work on the 3 of them. I wouldn't do that. I will take them, piece by piece, meaning the text first and then the background itself. For the text, I'm going to do something like this. Select them and move it over here. Right. I'm going to make the work area a bit bigger. And then select the last keyframes only. And then click and just drag them over here. Now, notice what's going to happen here. They're going to settle very nicely. Okay, give it time to render. I will deselect. You notice how they're settling very nicely. I'm going to choose all of them so I can see the graph for the text also. The position here, you need to do it the very right way. Otherwise, the text will come before the background. So first of all, let's do it the same. Okay, so we have this curve. Then we want to take it just over here. Okay, and let's try it first. Well, we're still cool. So the background is coming in before the text, and you're cool, they are all settling. So actually, this is the way to work. It's very easy and very simple. Let's go back to the keyframes, extend back the work area, zoom back in, here you are. Stop it at 5 seconds, I press N, and let's play. Now the animation has changed a bit. And it's much smoother, it's much nicer. The viewer, likes it a bit more. Maybe you should adjust the timing of these layers. Some things are coming very late, like the lower thirds is coming very late. So you adjust it, you play with it, you make it smooth, and this is the work. Now for every animation, you should come and play with the graph editor, with the speed graph and the value graph, and make your animations very smooth. Sometimes it's very important to create an attractive animation. Thank you very much for listening. I will see you in the next lecture and hope you're having lots of fun with the graph editor. See you then.